Hello viewers, the main objective of this lecture is to make the students of Bachelor of Performing Arts in Dance to understand regarding dance sculptures in the major temples of India. In India, dance is considered to be divine in origin. The god and goddesses not only take delight in dance, drama and mime, but many are great dancers themselves. Dance has for centuries been adopted in India both as a social accomplishment and as a ritual in temples and festivals. There is indeed a great similarity of dancing and religious images in India. The identity by the spirit in both appearances being systematically brought out by the 108 dances described by Bharata Muni in Natshastra. Sources: Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, Grah Sutra, Vinayaka Pitaka, Dighana Naika, Lalita Vistara and Brahit Kalpa Sutra, Ashtadhyay of Panini, the Kautilya's Arth Shastra, Ramayana and Mahabharata, Harivamsa, the Vishnu Purana, Shrimad Bhagavat, Vishnu Dharmotra, Harshtritas of Vana, the Agamas and Shilpa Shastras, Nat Shastra, Sangeeta Ratnakara, Abhinav Darpan and many others are the ancient sources to understand the significance of dance. The abiding ideals of philosophy and aesthetics on which the Hindu dance has been constructed have influenced the allied arts of sculpture and metal casting. Conscious attempts were made to capture the movements of dances. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa laid bare dancing figures in stone, bronze and terracotta. One figure has been considered as representing a dancer and another one has been taken as earliest representation of Shiva. Roland seems to believe a damaged statue of greyish limestone from Harappa complements this torso in its striking forecast of iconographic and stylistic elements of the historical periods of Indian art. This image represents dancing male figure, a bronze statue of a new dancing girl whose feet and anklets are found missing. She stands in Indian posture with head slightly tilted backwards. Her left hand is stretched down, resting just above the left knee, while right hand is just bending. It appears she is about to commence a dance. After the fall of the Indus Valley, there remains a big gap from circa 1500 BC to circa 400 BC from the Vedic literature to the Buddhists and Jainas literature. We do find only basic references to dance. During the Mauryans, the mind and heart of Ashoka turned towards the teaching of Buddha and no evidence of dance is available. The Buddhists, who were really the first to use stone in the stupas and monuments containing relics of the Buddha, followed by the chaityas and viharas, of which there are numerous examples in the caves. It was the Buddhists who, from the 2nd century BC, first used representations of the Hindu gods and goddesses. It was from them that Hindu religious, cultural and architectural arts took their inspiration. The temples became the centers not only of religious worship, but of art and learning. Art was meant for all to understand Hindu philosophy and aesthetics. The ancient Indian sculptors acquired a recognized position in society. They belonged to guilds which were protected by royal patronage. They were trained in the hereditary calling by their fathers. They had to study the 32 Shastras for crafts and to understand the Atharvaveda and the mystic Vedic prayers by which the deities are invoked. From the early times in India, the urge for worship of God through an image became established. The noted text Shukracharya speaks, let the imager establish images in temples by meditation on the deities who are the objects of his devotion. For the successful achievement of this yoga, the alignments of the image are described in the books to be dealt upon in detail. In no other way, not even by direct and immediate vision of an actual object, is it possible to be so absorbed in contemplation as thus in the making of the images. Mythology also contributed in the creativity of the artist, who meditated on these allegorical, predicable stories of God's divine perfection and incorporated these precepts into their marvelous sculptures. Numerous pillared halls of temples throughout India, hundreds of examples of the magnificence of the mental images that sculptors of old must have drawn upon for the many dense sculptures they created. During the Buddhist period, 500 BC to about 600 BC, and in what is called the classical period from 2nd century AD to about the 8th century AD, dance became popular. Bharut, Amravati, Aurangabad, Ajanta, Ellora, Khandagiri and Udayagiri are adorned with dancing scenes in stone carving. Situated half the way between Allahabad and Jabalpur, the Bharut cave temples belong to 200 BC. During the Shunga period, there are clear representations of Karnas and Angharas. Famous Apsaras well known in early literature are mentioned by name are labeled that go with the figures. On one of the sculptures, renowned celestial Apsaras such as Alambabhusha, Mishrakeshi, Padmavati and Subhadra are seen dancing to the accompaniment orchestral music in the Sudharma, means Deva Sabha. This panel shows 4 dancing females and a child is seen giving them company. There are many other dancing figures around. Another example of Bharut relief shows in its Ajat-Shatru pillar details of adoration by the gods of the terminal relics of the Buddha. Here is a depiction of 4 women dancing to an orchestra in which 7 people take part to the left side of the dancer. On the two gateways of Sanchi, dancing is seen in relation to both the gods and humans. The north pillar of western gateway shows Nagaraja, Michelinda, seated with his wives, and at their back there are 3 attendants. To his left, a troupe comprising a dancer and 5 female magicians are visible. During the period of Kushan rule in the 4th-3rd century AD, almost the entire regio-artistic activity was confined to the region from Gandhara to Mathura. Early Kushana period lays bare a few dancing scenes in terracotta. There are numerous terracotta plaques adorned with dancing figures. In one, a lady in dancing pose, with right leg slightly bent and hands set on both the sides of the waist. During the late Kushan period, a beautiful example of magicians and dancers representing either Nagas or Naganis are reported. Many sculptures on the pillars show dancing figures. In one scene, the legend of the peacock is dancing proudly. In the later Satvahana period, the railings at the ground level were found highly decorated in Amravati Stupa. Here, dancing plays an important part in the scenes of the worship of the Buddha and also in the courts of the Naga kings. In one panel now in the British Museum, London, dancer is shown in a beautiful pose, crossing legs at the hip level, standing sideways in the direction of the magicians, but her upper part of the body is straightway facing the audience. Her legs are crossed, and this is the best example of Diksvasatika Karana, which can be performed in all the directions, turning sideways or to the front. This figure is example of Angas and Apangas of dancing. At Amravati, belonging to the 3rd and the 4th century AD, delicately executed dancing apsaras are represented performing gracefully and rhythmically in the royal court. Nagarjunakonda in Andhra Pradesh is the last great stupa in which one finds illustrations of dancing sequences showing graceful bhangas. It looks as if the dancers are floating in the air. The Gupta dynasty arose to power in the 4th century AD. A number of historical sites in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar laid bare many sculptures of this period. One of the most graphic representations of Trivikarma's victory of Pali on a Gupta archetype from Pavaya is a notable collection of Gwalior Museum. In this panel, a female dancer is shown in delicate lahasya standing in Diksvastika pose. She holds Kataka Mukha Hasta in her right hand, and left hand hangs in Lata Karna pose. While in Ajanta and Ellora, there are beautiful sculptures of dancing Natarajas. Their forms are based on iconographic traits. In the Shiva temple at Bhumara represents dancing Ganas. The sculpture of Shiva dancing in Nachna Kuthara temple represents Mahadeva. Another panel from Badami shows Shiva in his Nataraja form dancing in Chatura Karna. Again, in the Khandagiri and Udayagiri caves, both the friezes and bas relief are depicted not only a series of dancers in charming and graceful poses, but men and women dancers have been sculptured, making offering to the Jaina shrines. The Apsaras and the Gandharvas take an important and significant place in the Buddhist, Brahminical and Jaina cultural art, and they are shown to represent the tender spirit of the feminine personality. They were devoid of earthly attachments. The earliest sculptures of Shiva, Nandata, dancer of the Natarajas, in the Golden Hall at Chidambaram are placed about the 6th century AD. At Nataraj temple of Chidambaram, there are sculptures of this dance which represent creation, preservation and destruction. The movement for integration of philosophy, religion and art started here. A hall called Kanaka Sabha or Nritya Sabha is consisted with 16 panel pillars which are highly decorated with bhutmala. Minutely carved bhutas are depicted in dancing postures or playing different instruments. The four gopurams have the depictions of Karanas. Each pose is depicted in an image. The dance pose in the Chidambaram temples are found on the Antarala walls. These figures represent their distinctive styles. Virideshwara temple at Tanjore and Hoysalas at Helipet. Bas-reliefs portray many instances of Shiva as Lord of Dance. A wonderful, tremendous sense of power and magnificent balance is expressed by the genius of these great ancient sculptors. All the walls show figures of deities. For example, the south wall depicts Shiva Nataraja and Shiva in Kalantaka pose. The Tanjore series of Karanas are seen sculptured in the corridor. Shiva temples at Trichinopalli are beautifully embellished with mystic dances of Shiva. Rameshwara temple and Jagannath temple at Puri, Lingaraja temple at Bhubaneswar, and the Sun temple at Konark are decorated with the sculptures of Nataraja and reveal the source of all the movements of the universe. The Roca temples of Elephanta and Ellora in Maharashtra state have abundance of Shiva's forceful Tandava dance in his tamasic aspect as Bhairava. Both these temples were built in the 8th century AD. These images are emphasizing the glory of the great deity. All these sculptures of the dancing Shiva are perfect examples of the Indian philosophy and aesthetics. In one of the reliefs of Kailashnath temple at Kanchipuram, this dance is so illustrated that one gets a lasting impression from the whole assemblage of posture, hands and alignments of the fast speed and force that underlay this aspect of Shiva's dance. There are numerous examples of Shiva's Chandra dance as Bhairava can be seen in the large sculpture in Hoysala temples at Helipet, the many portrayals in the Shri Andal temple at Belur and in the Brideshwara temple at Tanjore. The Kailashnath temple at Kanchipuram is known for the large sculpture of Shiva's Lahasya dance with its gentle rhythm harmoniously set at glorious eventide. The dance can also be seen in almost all the Chalukyan temples at Pattadakal. The dances of the goddesses Durga and Kali are best seen in the temples of the south. In the temples at Belur, Durga is six-handed and dances her dance of destruction of evil. She slays the Asura known as Mahesha Maradani in the Devi temple at Chibandram. Posture and gestures are expressive of dance in all its power of emotional and interpretative qualities. Kali dance of destruction of evil is beautifully portrayed at the Hoysala temple at Helipet. Here too, a unique sculpture of Ganapati, the elephant-headed god, can also be seen. The legendary dances of Saraswati, Shri Krishna and Vishnu are also notable. There are classic sculpture of the 12th century temples of Belur and Helipet built by Hoysala's king Vitiga. Saraswati in her dancing pose represent delicacy of line and rhythm, which gives the impression of soft sound waves of raga melody. There are sculptures of Shri Krishna in his Tandava dance subduing Kaliya in these two temples. The sculptures representing Vishnu depict the myth that Vishnu took the form of goddess Mohini, representing delusion and dance in order to defeat the Asura, Bhasmasura, representing evil. In Nataraj temple at Chidambaram, on the 7 inset pillars which flank the entrance of each Gopuram, there are carvings of the 108 Karna. Underneath each sculpture is engraved a Sanskrit verse describing it in detail that corresponds to the same text and the Karna as written in the Natashastra. Dance sculptures in the temples of Ambarnath at Puri and Bhubaneswar and in the medieval temples of Khajuraho are also based on Bharata's Natashastra. The temples of Odisha, particularly the temple of Konark belonging to the 13th century AD, the sculpture represent almost every important dance pose and gestures found in the Karnas in the form of reliefs, and hundreds of these reliefs of women and in various dancing poses decorate the hall of dance, the Nat Mandapa. For more figures of feminine dances, one can see the Jagannath Vishnu temple at Puri and the Virupaksha, Papnath and Kasannanath temple at Pattadakal. Within the sculptured pillar halls at Belur and Halibut, Hoysala temples, bracket figures show dancers and the famous king Shantala Devi, who was a renowned dancer. Outside the walls are ornamented with the dances of this artistic king. More examples of the classical dance poses performed by female dancers abound in the Ramappa temple at Palampet, at the Nataraj, Surya and Devi temples at Chidambaram, in the Bideshwar temple at Tanjore, and in the main temple at Udaipur, where there are friezes inside and on the temple tower depicting dances and magicians. In each wonderful work of art, the whole idea underlying each dance has been vividly expressed. It may be the parable stories of the gods, or the graceful dances of the apsaras, or depictions of the classical dance. These many sculptures come to posterity. The nobility of form, grace and rhythmic flow of these sculptures inspires the Rasikas. The uplifting philosophical concepts they symbolize impel a feeling of reverence in the beholder. Their appeal is universal. Dance, drama, sculpture, painting, worship and social intercourse in India were all governed by symbolic expression. In Indian sculpture, there are ample evidences of dancing images of divinities where artists did not follow the grammar of dance, appears to have been faithful in concentrating on the iconographic details. Because of different geographical, topographical and cultural situations prevailing at different times and due to different artists trained in different styles of executed the figures, outlined noteworthy differences in their compositions. Each school is different from other but eminent from Vedic tradition. The difference is outwardly but traditions on the basis of which each form evolved the various stories with the same divinities. No other form of artistic and aesthetic expression epitomizes the living in the cultural tradition of this country as dance, be it a classical or folk. That rhythm is an essence of sculpture, and it is impossible to attain a proper expression without a preliminary knowledge of the art of dancing. Not merely gestures and poses characterize the most ancient images found at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and the execute bas relief at Sanchi, Bharut and Bodh Gaya, but a dynamic rhythm of the movement, flight or dance in West, the Guptas and Amravati reliefs, and sculptures with a combination of grace and vigor of movement, establishing the norms of the Asian art through the epochs. The regulated flow of consciousness due to the control of breathing accounts for the various parts of the body of individual figures, that all constitute a unity, so the rhythmical pulse of life makes the whole myth in the sculpture vibrant with life. The unending pulsation of consciousness is mirrored in the earthly Indian art. Indian art has portrayed numerous forms of Gandharvas, Apsaras, angels and fairies conceived by Brahmins, Buddhism and Tao celestial figures that dance in heaven, revealing the rhythm of the spirit and breaking no earthly laws of gravitation. The most graceful examples of ethereal spirits dancing in the sky are the Gandharvas and Apsaras in the sculptures of early Indian centers. Everywhere, the flexions and movements of celestial beings in the upper air reveal supernatural rhythms and symmetries not accessible to human creatures. In the medieval sculptures of India, even the single dancing image and bracket figures of Surasundaris, Salabhanjikas, Apsaras and Naikas are adorned with delicacy and sensitiveness. The delicately modeled body with the suppling contours and the undulating of the garment is ordered by the dancing movement and reveals blissful relaxation of mood. The dancing forms of sculpture bring man nearer to the impalpable and transcendental stage. The profoundest depths of the soul, its wistful longings, can only be revealed in a special manner of music and dance, which is the gold of all the other arts. Thank you very much.